So here it is. You've listened to us this entire time, but now you've ended up with too many geckos, and better yet, too many holdbacks. This is what you need to do. Hey guys, what's going on? Will here, flawless crested geckos, coming to you guys with another video today. Pretty insightful video this go around. We were asked actually by one of our Patreon members in reference to they've been sticking to their guns, doing their holdbacks like they should on their very important breedings and moving forward. So that they can progress. And they want to know, at what point do you have too many geckos? And at what point do you have too many holdbacks? Very important, because, you know, if you guys have listened to us for any length of time, we preach and harp on the importance of making yourself your primary #1 customer. And in doing that, you can't help but to keep improving your collection, especially when you match that with educated purchases as well. But at some point you have to look at your infrastructure to see how you're going to facilitate all these changes in your collection. And if you're doing that the proper way, you'll have your infrastructure shouldn't necessarily match your collection. Your infrastructure should be able to be much larger than your actual collection, within reason. So everybody knows our story, or if you haven't, a short synopsis of that is we started our collection and our keeping inside our home. It started from one huge room to 2 rooms. It took over our guest bedroom, our second den in our home, then the bathroom, our second bathroom, our third bathroom, it took over in our home, and just kind of kept growing out of control. At one point we had 3 rooms of geckos, and we were pretty much maxed out as far as infrastructure, as far as keepers and breeders. That forced us to sell geckos that at the very beginning we intended on keeping, which sparked us to kind of take note of that and learn from our mistakes. That way, when we built the facility, we made sure to facilitate a much larger collection than what we actually have. We have a lot, but that being said, we're not necessarily looking to grow numbers wise now. We're fine-tuning things. We have it down to a science. The kids are on a working schedule. As far as cleaning, we put up a lot of videos on IG and here on YouTube, kind of putting that stuff out of there, kind of funny little excerpts. It's kind of cool to have a family-owned business because you kind of keep everything tightly knit, and the kids can see firsthand the amount of effort and work it takes to go into the business. But getting back on topic, too many geckos overall, as well as too many holdbacks. You want to make sure that your housing and keeping and time management can tend to the amount of geckos you're going to keep. Also, you're going to want to put pen to paper and write down your breeding plans, your expectations, as well as your results, because just because you expect to produce something, you expect a lot of, you know, high hopes for certain projects, doesn't mean you're always going to get them. That's the harsh reality of breeding. Far too often you actually don't meet your expectations. So we are extremely excited when we do. So to get it down to a science is very, very simple, guys. The way we do our breedings and our availability, they kind of go hand in hand. We can go through and, yeah, we may have, let's say, 1,000 geckos that's available for sale. I feel like that will be like a sensory overload if we put 1,000 geckos online on our website and make them all available. Number one, it's a logistical nightmare for us to log everything and weigh everything. By the time we're done weighing 1,000 geckos, it's probably going to be 4 or 5 weeks of posting pictures and geckos for sale. And at that time, the geckos we started with are now heavier than what we actually listed them for. So I think it's a sensory overload as well for a buyer, especially new buyers, and we want to be extremely friendly and welcoming to new prospective buyers and keepers and enthusiasts getting into the hobby, because things are already confusing enough. We want to be able to have a healthy selection of geckos where, you know, you can get a little bit of everything and it not be too overwhelming. We see that a lot of time when we're in shows as well. We try not to bring too many, but a lot at the same time. 150 and under, we try. And again, that comes from a learning curve. I remember one show we did, we brought 300 geckos, 350 geckos actually. And we were displaying geckos and putting geckos out for the first 4 hours of the show, still being open already. So it's a lot of work. On top of that, you get a lot of people come to your booth and they're looking, they're literally amazed with what you have. At the same time, they want to purchase something and have no clue where to start. So it's a little overwhelming. So that goes back to think about it from the breeder's perspective. You have a little bit more focus, definitely a lot more determination and drive for what you actually want in your collection. So let's start with the holdbacks first.
Hey guys, Flawless Crested Geckos here, Will, Audra, and we're here to tell you about our Patreon.
Yes, going through tough times, you got to know that Flawless is always going to have your back. If you go over to patreon.com/flawlesscrestedgeckos, you'll see all the perks and benefits it is there for you to come and support us on our Patreon. $50 a month turns around and goes right back into your Flawless Crested Geckos savings account for you to use towards your next purchase.
Any purchase. We also give awesome benefits such as 5% off the top of the price of the gecko. We give free merchandise, t-shirts, we have stainless steel tables, tools, yes. All kinds of goodies. We also give free shipping to our members all year round, no blackout dates. And, you know, we give awesome tips, or we think we do anyway.
That's right. So go over to patreon.com/flawlesscrestedgeckos
and join our family.
When you're doing your parents and you're doing your breedings, you're looking for a very specific, you know, structure, coloration, genetics, morphs, the whole 9 yards. If these things, and again, I'm not going to single them out in this specific video. I just want to get you guys on board and put not only this answer out there for the person that needed it, but for everyone. When you see said geckos hatch out and you grow them up for a little bit and they make it to your holdback rack, there's a number of questions you're going to ask yourself. How it looks at 10, 15 grams, how it looks at 20, 25 grams. Is it male? Is it female? What's your needs in your programs? So all of these come into play. For us, we've been blessed enough to say, hey, we need this structure, this coloration, this morph, this gene. And a lot of the time now, it's honestly irrelevant whether it's male or female. We just need a very specific look because we have so many geckos now that we can benefit from both male and females. A lot of people like to hold back primarily just females, but you'll put yourself in a genetic hole if you do that. Eventually you may have a tremendous, incredible male that's knocking it out of the park, home run after home run for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. You may have a pair of males that's unrelated that's doing that for you. But after you get to the point where you're taking his offspring that's now, you know, adults, and breeding them back to, let's say, the other male's offspring, which is completely unrelated, where do you go 2 years from then, when now you have the offspring of both males who sired, both, offspring, but then you also have offspring from the crossing of the lines as well. And now where are you gonna, go with it, because everything is kind of linked together once you start, crossing the offspring, which is fine. But you have nowhere else to go necessarily with the females. You may hold back. Are you going to line breed back to the father? And that's why we like having a little bit of everything from, the nicest of the nicest of the nicest and collected, and it be unrelated, but still along the lines of what we're chasing. So you get those guidelines. Make sure you're going to have the right and proper gender that you're looking for. Structure everything under the sun for you, and then you have to also go through a second and third stage of fine-tuning according to your infrastructure. If you can house 500 geckos and you already have 100, fine, hold back everything you plan on holding back. But if you're looking for very specific males to hold back or very specific females, you may find that at 25 grams, 30 grams, that that holdback is actually the opposite gender of what you were seeking. Okay, at that point, it's now to offer your holdback release up for someone that may need that in their collection. As a whole, though, for overall production, if we want to address that, if you have 100 geckos, even in an imperfect, perfect world, and half of them are females, you're going to have a lot of babies in your breeding season. So make sure, especially if you're new, you're prepared for what's coming to your home. You need to make sure you have the resources to take care of them, as well as the outlets to put them out there in front of the market, in front of the world. Because it will quickly multiply. And you also, like I spoke about earlier, you don't want to put yourself in a desperation hole either. You don't want to be overrun quickly with geckos, whether babies or juveniles, and be looking to off them very quickly, whether they're hatchlings or juveniles, to the market, because it's going to be a huge sensory overload for whatever buyer is viewing those geckos. So you end up doing yourself a disservice. Strategically, the way we look at things is we try, other than like a December release, or November release, or summer release or something like that, we tend to try to stay in the 40, 50, 60 gecko release range. Even having 10 times that available, to put out, that's irrelevant. We don't want to overload our customers. So we put them out in spurts like that. We see, and then we also keep good statistics, record keeping, and see what people are wanting, what's in demand. And as those things sell, at one point we were selling a lot of red-based Dalmatians. I mean, a ton. So we started putting out a little bit more and more red Dalmatians, and people just kept on buying them. We have a lot of red base white and red base with cream, Harlequins. A lot of people want those, but that's our pride and joy. So we kind of let those out as they become available. Those are a little bit more harder to come by as far as for release from us, because we hold those near and dear. You're going to have projects like that too. Don't be too in a rush to put out animals that's kind of on the fence for you. Just continue to hold those back. I'm sure you have other geckos that you can put out there that you need to make revenue from the business side. Geckos that don't move your program forward, but will move someone else's program forward. That's also something we definitely want to put out there for you guys. Everybody is not at the same level of keeping, of breeding, and that's okay. We want our brand to be kind of the sounding board of bringing people together, the Flawless fam. And one of the ways we like to do that, and it can be misunderstood or mistaken or lost in translation through words. We get that. A lot of keeping versus hobbyish versus breeding business. A lot of that you'll see in the industry, in the hobby. You'll see people against each other and kind of constantly clashing, and we don't really want any of that. But we understand that the words can kind of be misconstrued to cause that. So what I mean by levels of breeding is you may have someone that meets us at one of the shows and they purchase a gecko, let's say what everyone across the board will call an entry-level gecko. We're not even gonna say what Morse, but they purchase that gecko and learn how to keep and learn how easy it is and learn how fun and cool they are. And because it's happened to us, and that's how we got into this and got started. And they go down that rabbit hole, and next thing you know, they're ordering from us, ordering from you, ordering from some of everybody, some of the geckos that they get interested in. They're going to have different interests than we may have. They may have different interests than you have. But at the same time, a gecko that they may breed and produce, they may have 2 or 3 geckos out of 10 that push their program forward, and 6 or 7 that don't. But 6 or 7 that don't push their programs forward can possibly get a new person into the industry, a new person into the hobby, or it can possibly a breeder that's already started, that's on a lower budget, it can possibly move their program forward by attaining these geckos from them. So there's levels and steps that be taken. So again, too many geckos, definitely strategically release the geckos that you plan to sell. Do not drop everything all on the market at one time. It's just my opinion. And if you have too many holdbacks, make sure you fine tune your standards of keeping, fine tune your standards of breeding, work on your infrastructure. If you can't grow your infrastructure, make sure you don't grow the number of geckos you intend to keep, because you're going to force your hand to be stuck. So too many holdbacks, definitely start determining whether you need specific lines, and don't compromise your needs for anything unless you're going to blow through your ceiling of keeping. But anyway, it's Will, Flawless Crested Geckos. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we out.